One of the things I love about space is it really changes your perspective on things. When you zoom out and you realize that you're this like itty bitty speck on this spinning rock through space. We're actually already inside space, by the way.
Right.
It's not separate, we're already in it. You start to shift your entire perspective on everything, And my first two words, believe it or not, were for star and airplane.
Three things you will learn from this episode today. Number one, how to pivot from chaos to clarity. Number two, adopting the pivoter philosophy, what it is and how it gives you an edge. And number three, how to lead like a pilot, spot early signals, decide quickly, and communicate calm. Welcome to this episode of the Heartbeat for Hire podcast. I feature Olympians, CEOs, disruptors, authors, professional athletes, and the best of the best, where they share their stories of resilience with my lens on leadership and culture. Let's get started. What do you get when you combine an ex-global aviation exec turned bold leadership trainer, a leadership catalyst who turns chaos into clarity, the founder of Pivot Point International and the Adaptability Lab, and a keynote slayer and MC with an edge? You get Sarah Kalmeta, Sarah the Pivoter. She helps leaders drop the illusion of certainty and move with speed, heart, and clarity when change hits. She helps leaders trade certainty addiction for adaptability. With roots in aerospace, a heavy dose of neuroscience, one heaping scoop of storytelling, and years on global stages, she blends sharp strategy with real humanity, my favorite kind, and a wink of irreverence. Sarah, welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Lindsay. It's such a pleasure to be here.
I am so looking forward to this conversation, and I know my audience will as well. So I start every show the same way, and I always ask, can you please share a little of your story?
Yes, absolutely. So the roots of being a pivoter really began when I pivoted from being a full-time going for gold figure skater to switching my sights on aviation. I was a figure skater from the wee age of 3 until 14. When injuries decided to become too much of an issue, and I really had to intentionally think about facing double knee surgery in my
Ugh.
20s. Not something I'm glad that I was having that conversation and really looking forward, because I would not have if it hadn't been for my mother really sitting me down and looking at the repercussions of choice. And that really set me up for the rest of my life on to being very intentional on where I put my attention and taking in real time signals to adapt if I needed to.
Mm.
Then I joined the Civil Air Patrol in high school. I wanted to be a fighter pilot so badly. Like the jets just, they get me excited. I wanted to fly fast. And my eyesight was not perfect. And at the time, LASIK was not, accepted. And to be under that many G forces, it just was unlikely I would get the aircraft of my choice. And while I would have still had probably an amazing career, I didn't love flying enough. It wasn't my passion to the same degree to want to fly anything else. And so I chose to go the civilian route, and I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I remember being one female in 10 at the time. That statistic has changed, thankfully. And then started down that track, fell into the business jet world completely by chance, studied Mandarin, Asian studies as a minor, went to Asia for 13 years. Then COVID happened.
Mm.
And I, at this point, was burnt out, disillusioned by the industry, and just really questioning what was I doing with my life? Because
Mhm.
I had all of the things I wanted on paper. I achieved all of those things, and many of them early, and I was miserable.
Mhm.
And so I started to really reflect, why was that? What did I really want? Did I even know? And it was a process of unwinding, relearning how to make choices for myself rather than adopting others' viewpoints or goals or things of that nature. And then having the proverbial push out of the baby bird's nest into, okay, well, you get the opportunity now to do your own thing. And so I started Pivot Point in 2020. So it's been 5 years now, which is really exciting. And was thinking, where do I want to take this? And I recognized that theme of adaptability was really, really strong. And so that's where I came up with the name Pivot Point, also a tie back to figure skating days.
Mhm.
You know, the changing between edges and
Mhm.
the movement that we have. There's always that moment where it could go any direction.
Mhm.
And so we have many of these in our life. We tend to focus on the big ones, you know, marriage, birth, death, moving, new job, starting a business, closing down a business, etc. But what about those small daily pivots? How do we focus on that? And that's where Pivot Point and Sarah the Pivoter was born.
I love it. I mean, just about every guest on the show has some significant pivot that pointed them in the direction of the elite space that they're in now. And I embrace pivots. I think they, whether you're shoved out of the nest like both you and I were, or you recognize that something you're doing is no longer sustainable, it's so important for you to figure out what drives you and what can support that direction you're going in. So you found a love for space. And that was something you were telling me when we first met. And can you talk a little bit about that? Because you kind of entrenched yourself in that world and that became like a real home for you. So talk a little bit about that.
Yes, absolutely. One of the things I love about space is it really changes your perspective on things. When you zoom out and you realize that you're this like itty bitty speck on this spinning rock through space. We're actually already inside space, by the way.
Right.
It's not separate, we're already in it. You start to shift your entire perspective on everything, you know? And my first two words, believe it or not, were for star and airplane.
Mm.
So my mom recognized that I would say sta, and she thought I was babbling when I would say ba, but then she realized I was pointing to the moving balls of light when I said that word.
Mm.
And so I was really looking upward ever since I was a child. And, you know, being in Asia and being in aviation, aerospace just kind of fell to the background. It was one of those things of, well, I didn't go military, so how do I become an astronaut? And, you know, just I went down a different track. And when I was in the US in 2023, I was speaking at a conference. One of the keynote speakers, who is now a really good friend of mine, Michelle Mace Curran, was speaking about courage and
Mhm.
those bold risks. And she led us through this exercise of what was that dream you put up on a shelf that's gathered some dust on it? Can you take a look at it, wipe the dust off, and see it? Before she even finished speaking, I mean, she like halfway through her sentence of this exercise, in my mind's eye, my eyes were closed, was just like space. You know, I
Mhm.
saw the nebulas and the star systems and the galaxies, the big word space, like flashing in bright lights.
Mhm.
And it was just this recognition of I still love it. It's still exciting for me.
Mhm.
And in the last few years, especially, space has become a lot more accessible.
Right.
Inspiration 4 in 2020, they just celebrated their 4-year anniversary the other week. I've actually met three of the four astronauts in person on that flight and gotten the privilege to work with them and have conversations. And it made me realize that this is now a reality that I can chase.
Mm.
And so I spoke about it. I just shared my dream, my vision with the president of the National Business Aviation Association. He's like, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, do you know Dr. Cyan Proctor? She's going to be at leadership next month." And I said, "No." He's like, "Are you coming?" I said, "Well, I am now." And that started the domino effect of having the one conversation that led to the next, that led
Yeah.
to the introduction, that led to the next thing. And then the next thing you know it, I'm, you know, doing this program called Space Kind with Loretta Whitesides and getting to meet these incredible humans in so many different facets of space that I didn't even know existed.
Right.
And probably many people to this day still don't. And really just dive in. And it's been a wild ride. It's hard to think it's only been about 2.5 years since that journey began because it just feels like home. And it feels
Yeah.
like I've always been here.
Well, Mace is a friend of mine too, and she's been on this show, and so has another female fighter pilot. So we have great love for that whole space here and the leadership that it takes to take those bold, bold moves. So, can we talk a little bit about this concept of turning chaos into clarity? Because this is a leadership thing. You know, growing up in sales, and just like you being one of the only women. Um, the level of pressure and the level of chaos and moving parts is never ending. And I think a lot of leaders can get burnt out and overwhelmed. So, what do you advise?
I love this question because it doesn't matter where you're at in your career, we can all benefit from a reset. Now, overwhelm occurs when we get locked in things like imposter syndrome, we don't have healthy boundaries, we don't know how to express, I'm at my limit, I need support, or I am not competent in this thing. So I need to learn more before I can take it on fully, because we're not given that when we're going through our careers. It's very rare that we have a formal training program. And we have learned by watching others, including our parents, and then our very first few sets of leaders, which are not always the most ideal or the most powerful situations.
In the wrong place most of the time, but yeah.
Yes, right. And with each generation, we learn new things about psychology, about the human psyche, and why we do the things we do. I'm a really big nerd on that, diving into things like self-determination theory. So when we start to wind that back and we look at why do we do what we do? What is it that's motivating us? We can start to ask ourselves better questions and gain more clarity on where we're pointing the bow of our ship. And when with clarity, then we can act with certainty. We'll have more confidence to take that next step or to ask for help. But it really begins with awareness. So, my business partner and I, we do a lot of leadership training. We talk about naming it to tame it. It's that, monster that's chasing you in your dream. Well, as soon as you decide, I'm just going to turn around and see what it is. And then that all of a sudden you wake up, the dream doesn't ever happen again, right? The proverbial monster in the closet is just, you turn the lights on, it's a pile of clothes.
That's right.
And so when you really look the fears in the eye, and despite it being there, you make a choice, a conscious choice that I'm going to do this anyway. Like, be my comrade in arms
Mhm.
and let's go together and
Mhm.
figure this thing out, right? Rather than trying to fight with it
Yeah.
to be right or to win. It's, hey, let's do this together.
Mhm.
And it changes the entire energy around things. And I also like to tie back to space, out of chaos, the chaotic soup came order,
Yeah.
came consciousness, came life, intelligence, all of the things. And you can dive in and get really nerdy with me, or get granular. But when we recognize that all beautiful things actually originate from chaos, then we can use that to have a different energy as we approach things.
Yeah.
And that is how everything shifts.
I love that. I think it's such a great reminder for people to kind of zoom out and just really understand what the goal is, what the point of all of that chaos is, and just take a deep breath and know you're not alone. I mean, there are very few leaders that are alone. And you have to lean on people, and whether that's creating your personal board of advisors or working with your team or working with people above you or below you, they're there. So tap into that. It's so important. So, one of the things we said at the top we were going to talk about is lead like a pilot. So, talk a little bit about that. What does that mean? I mean, I have the idea in my mind of what it means. It's
Sure.
lots of decisions, it's lots of calm, it's obviously being really familiar with your product and your landscape so you can adjust quickly, but you take it, go for it.
Yes. So there's a lot of analogies here, and this is why I love to use it because it can make it more concrete and applicable for people who are not in aviation, who are not pilots. When you're a pilot, you will do something called a pre-flight and a post-flight
Mhm.
for every single mission that you go on. Doesn't matter if you're flying a Cessna 172 or an F-35 or a C-130, you will do this process every single flight. Doesn't matter if you're going from Chicago to Austin every single day or you're doing that 3 times in a day, you will still do a pre-flight and post-flight for each and every single flight. And so what does that mean? That requires preparation. And there's a checklist so that you don't have to have it all in your mind and remember,
Mhm.
or worry that you're going to forget something. So by having a checklist that you can go through, it creates calm
Mhm.
because you know that there's a process to follow. And if X, then Y, and you move to the next set of procedures, because there's a lot of information. And just like with life, there's a lot of information coming at you. There's a lot of change, there's a lot of ambiguity,
Hmm.
there's a lot of what if scenarios. What if there's a bird strike? What if the engine fails? What if my co-pilot has a heart attack and I'm now on my own? These can all be analogies for things that we would face in life. But if we live our life in the state of any one of those things might happen at one time, your nervous system would just collapse. And yet, that's exactly what's happened for most people. And that's why they're in this burnout and state of overwhelm.
Hmm.
So, having the pre flight means that you're able to be methodical, you're reducing decision fatigue because you know that there's a procedure to follow. So, it creates safety for you to be absolutely present with what's happening
Hmm.
so that you can get the signals and respond intentionally rather than reaction fire mode. It's the same thing for a public speaker who's rehearsing a speech. The more they rehearse the speech, the more they know that topic, the less they have to be in their head worrying about, am I going to get it right? Is this going to land? And they can just be present with the audience in front of them and really
Oh,
connect on a
you're
human
spot
level.
on. You're spot on. And I coach this with storytelling. And I always tell my clients when you're telling the story, there's elasticity in the story. And based on the reaction, you're going to pause on certain things longer. You're going to emphasize certain things because you're getting that feedback of, oh, they're interested in that part. Let me elaborate a little. Let me extend this part. And if you have those building blocks, you can always decide and pivot when you need to really make an impact. So, guys, if you've been listening to this show, you are hopefully enjoying this conversation with Sarah. This show, we're always looking for sponsors and people that want to support the show. So please subscribe, go out, leave a 5-star review. It's really, really important. And Sarah, here's one of my favorite questions. What inspires you?
The thing that inspires me is not just one thing, but it's inspired people. When I see other people lighting up about something, that's what inspires me.
Yeah.
And when I see people facing their fears head on, persevering despite, not having a perfect plan or maybe not knowing something, but being willing to try, to learn, to come back and review. And that's the second part is the post flight. Like, let's look at what happened, what worked well, what could be improved. When I see that happening, that's what inspires me. It's going to the gym and being part of a group class. And I'm kind of like, well, I'm tired today. I don't really want to. And then the person next to me is like twice my age, moving more quickly. I'm like, all right, I have no excuse. Like, let's get back into it, right?
Mhm.
I chose to come here for a reason. Why am I slacking off?
Mhm.
So when I see that, it just reignites that spark. And often I see that with young students. They've not been jaded yet. They have a lot of energy. And instead of worrying about all the what ifs, they're still in the imagine if. They're still in like, I've just graduated and there's so much possibility in front of me. It's exciting. I can't wait to get out into the world. And so that helps me tap back into that energy, which is, it's just, it's fun. It's exciting. The
Well, and
light
that imagination is so easy for us to lose in the chaos of life and the pressure. It's almost a luxury to sit and imagine, and leaders have to remind themselves that that's where some of the best stuff comes. It's that's how we get some of the best ideas.
one of
Um,
my one of my favorite phrases is the pause is just as important as the note.
mm,
And when you are listening to an epic piece of music, that grand symphony, think of that scene in the movie where the music is just intensifying and you got goosebumps, you're crying. If there was no pause between those notes, it would just be noise.
yeah.
We would not have the same reaction. And so we, as leaders, really need to make an intentional choice to build those pauses in, because if not, the world will take everything you have.
Hmm. I love it. I love it. What would you like your legacy to be?
This has changed over the years. I think in the first few years of business, it was probably more performative than anything. And I was trying to like prove something. And, now
Think a
the
lot of
act,
people are feel that like you have
yeah,
to command your space and be able to,
exactly.
own it. And when you're young, you don't have a lot of experience to lean on, so you need to be like that baller. So I get it.
Exactly. And I just actually finished reading the book Turning Pro by Stephen Pressfield this morning. Phenomenal. It's 2.5 hours if you get in on Audible. Really poignant, very concise. And, now I hope that my legacy is that it's possible to live an intentional life and continually make the choice every single day to be authentically you and lead from that space, to
Mm.
constantly choose, I'm going to be a professional in my life and that my life is a practice. And that because I've been able to do that, not without being fallible, of course, I'm human. There's going to be moments where I'm going to want to slip back into the comfort of hiding and being an amateur and shiny object syndrome. But that as soon as I recognize it, I decided to make that choice, let myself be inspired, and then hopefully that can inspire other people.
Love it. And what's next for you?
What's next? Well, I'm in this moment of pause myself. It's been a very busy summer, a very busy year. The season's just changed. It's now fall. And so allowing myself to spend some time here reflecting and seeing what feels good. What's been working well, what's aligning with my energy, and what could be improved. Where can I step up? Where can I go in deep and make that fear my companion
Mhm.
and my motivator rather than my stumbling block? And so for me, I'm really focusing on the leadership training, diving into where I can make a difference in people's lives, and doing that in a very intentional way. So I have several projects coming up that I'm really excited about. And interestingly enough, I'm actually pulling back on the public speaking.
Mm.
Um, I still love an audience, I still love a stage. And it's something that I feel will be supportive to the work that I'm doing in the boardroom and with executives or leaders rather than the thing that's leading it.
Got it. Cool. And how can people find you?
People can find me at sarahkalmeta.com or Sarah the Pivoter on Instagram, and on LinkedIn. I'm most active on those two platforms.
So am I. So, guys, check out Sarah. Go give her a follow. Look at what she's doing. Her content is fantastic. Sarah, it's been such a joy having you on the show. Thank you for sharing your story and letting us learn from you. I hope that together we're inspiring people to step up and be better leaders. And guys, sit tight. I have an audience question coming right up. Today's audience question is a toughie. It's about layoffs and how do I maintain composure and keep my head straight when I know I have to do something really rough. This is something I've experienced personally. It was something I swore I would never get good at. And layoffs is they're a part of business. But if you are consistently leading with heart, if you are showing up for your people, if you are lifting each other up, and you are constantly putting yourself out there as an authentic leader, as an authentic human, then when those layoffs arrive, they know that is not your voice. They know it is not you that is making those decisions. Now, you might have had to make those decisions because you're going to have to make choices of who you have to lay off. However, um, you have to be in a position to obviously share what HR tells you have to share, which is often a script. It was for me. And when you share that script, they know that they're not your words. And in some cases, these people are, they recognize that so quickly and the kind of leader that you've been that they know it's not you. Now, if you are in the C-suite and you have to do it, it's different. You have more culpability, and that is a harder decision. But the same rules apply. If you've been an authentic leader, then you show up as that, and people understand that this is a business decision. The people that did it the best were the brothers that were running Stripe. There are a lot of stories of who's done it wrong, but they were one that who of a couple of guys that did it right. And what happened was they sent a letter out to the whole company. And they said, we over forecasted. We thought our growth would be exponentially larger than it was. And as a result, we have to make some changes. We have to lay some people off. And this was not a decision we arrived at lightly. We own this decision. This is on us, and there is nobody else to blame. We're deeply sorry, and we would love to put our Stripe family back together again. But until we can grow appropriately, we have to let people go. They took culpability. They let people know they owned that mistake. And that made such a big impact on those people who were laid off because it wasn't personal, it was a business decision and it was clearly stated as such. So think about these things as you have to go into layoffs. This is such a difficult thing to do. I know you're not going to be sleeping. I know how hard it's going to be, but just have faith. The time will pass. You will be able to maintain relationships with those people if you are always showing up as a great, authentic leader, which I hope if you've been listening to this show, you are. As always, thank you for your support. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to be a sponsor, please reach out. This is a wonderful opportunity to align your company with our leadership goals at Heartbeat for Hire. Thank you for being a loyal listener and have the best day. Go out and lead with heart. Thanks for listening to this episode of Heartbeat for Hire. I hope you enjoyed what you heard. If you did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel or consider leaving a 5-star review and a great rating at Spotify or Apple. Thank you so much for your support. Have a great day.